Hey, I'm Rhythm, and I'm here to teach you the basics of Wardancer 3v3 PvP. In order to keep this video short and simple and to the point, I won't be going over the builds, but I do already have a video going over the builds that I currently run and the trees that I use that can be found here. To start, this is how you should be spending your points: 750 swiftness, 249 domination, and 1 crit. A lot of people ask why 1 crit, because it's better to have a chance to crit than to not, and stacking crit really doesn't have considerable benefits. Next up, we're going to be going over basic combos and how to use the abilities that we have. Energy combustion, this is an ability you need to just always have up. As soon as the gate opens, pop energy combustion, that way it's already rolling. You get 10% damage reduction. It helps build esoteric orbs, just by standing next to people. To go over the esoteric orbs, these are the class identity for a lot of the martial art classes, but the big thing for Wardancer is you want to charge these up by taking and dealing damage. Wind's Whisper and Crescent Moon Kick are really great ways to charge these up, which is why in our basic combo we Thunder Kick in, Wind's Whisper, Crescent Moon Kick. Really great way to charge to get an early tornado, especially if you're hitting multiple targets. And any ability that says esoteric skill requires these orbs to be filled up in order to use. So like your tornado needs 2. If you run my 1v1 build, the stun requires 1. Generating these and timing the esoteric skills is extremely important for Wardancer, because no matter what you're running, a lot of the time it will set you up for more combos. By the way, damage reduction 10%, really big, and it explodes after 15 seconds, and it knocks up and does a ton of damage. It can save you if you're on the ground getting comboed and somebody's just like wailing on you. It'll actually knock them up and you can turn a lot of fights that way. Next up, we have Crescent Moon Kick, and it does have a different NA name. This is just the one that I'm used to calling it. This is a solid engage, a really good way to begin juggling your enemies. Couple this with the spacebar in order to close the gap off of the dash that you get with Crescent Moon Kick, and people don't really expect it. So it's a good way to just like catch somebody off guard with the spacebar Crescent Moon Kick into your juggling combo, which we'll get into later. Next up is Wind's Whisper. This is going to charge your esoteric orb when you push multiple enemies. So if you jump in on somebody and use this ability, you're going to get a pretty good return on orbs and get an early tornado. Also a big thing, it gives 20% damage reduction to yourself and teammates for 6 seconds, which is a lot. So you can use this DR, which is damage reduction, if you hear me say that again. You can use this to save your teammates from taking insane damage. So if you see somebody getting artillerist nuke, you can pop this and give them 20% damage reduction so that nuke doesn't do the full damage. And it's a really good initiator into Crescent Moon with your juggling combos as well. Next up, we have Sleeping Ascent Celebration. If you hold this button down, you're going to extend the dash, but when you let go, the dash stops. And if you hit the button a second time, that's what initiates your AoE knockup. So you have to hit it twice. And this can be used as an escape or an engage. Next up is Sky Shattering Blow. You need to press this button twice in order for it to properly knock up an enemy, but I mean, it's pretty cut and dry how this one works, so we're not going to get too crazy with it. Next up is Phoenix Advent or Dive. If you hear me say dive in a video or something like that, this is what I'm referring to. Use this button to engage unsuspecting targets from off screen. If you use the knockup tree, you can instantly knock up an enemy knocked up with a tornado, and you can be frozen or knocked up while you're using this ability when you're in the animation. So it's not the best engage if people are like really looking at you. A lot of the times you might get you can get frozen while you're in this animation, you can get knocked up, you can't get stunned like with paralysis, but I mean, you're pretty susceptible to getting stopped before you hit the ground. So it's important to kind of time it. I would say you don't want to engage with this right at the start of a game. Kind of save it for singling somebody out, or they start fighting your teammates and stack up and you can get a triple knockup or freeze that way. Next up is Thunder Kick. If you want to be the initiator, the aggressor, this is the jump that you want to use. It has a fast animation and you're paralysis immune while you're using it. You can use this to add large amounts of damage by using it on an opponent that's already knocked up into the air. It essentially slams them on the ground. So let's say you didn't use it to engage, but you knock somebody up with like a Crescent Moon Kick or one of your other knockups, and then you Thunder Kicked on top of them while they were in the air. It does extra damage with the trees that I use. Short cooldown, and it's very good for engaging or even for escapes if your teammates die and you need to reset. Next up, this is probably the most important ability in the Wardancer kit for 3v3. Call of the Wind God, which is the giant tornado that sucks people up, and you can carry them around and kind of just like take them wherever you want to take them. You can separate them from their teammates. You can walk them into their teammates and get a triple tornado. It's an awesome ability. It has insane damage in CC. Like I said, you can carry enemy players away from their team and into your team's AoE ability. So if you have an artillerist on your team and they drop a nuke, you can actually pick somebody up and then drag them into that nuke, and it's still going to do the full damage. AoE from Sorks. Sometimes you can pick them up and it'll negate your teammates' damage, unfortunately, but that's just going to be you know, it happens. You can't avoid it all the time. Something to keep in mind though, this ability is interruptible. So you can be knocked up, frozen, you can't be stunned. You do have immunity from that, but a lot of classes don't really rely on the stuns. They have so much knock up and freeze and everything else. So you really have to time the ability. You can be pushed out of it as well, just to keep that in mind. But let's say like a sorceress ulted and you have Call of the Wind God. First half of the Sorc ult is paralysis, right? So you have immunity to that. If you pop Tornado and the Sorc pops their ult, as long as you tornado your way out of the ult, you actually won't get knocked up. But if you stay too long in there and you're just tornadoing on the Sorc that's ulting, when the knockup goes off, you're going to get knocked out of the tornado. Just a little cheeky tip that you can throw on this one as well is you can pick enemy players up and take them into the fire in their spawn room in order just to add on some extra damage. It's a little BM, but it actually works and it's really effective if they're playing, you know, back by their spawn. Next up is our ultimate Fist of Dominance. This is the only real super armor we have in our kit. And when I say super armor, I'm talking like you can't be pushed, knocked up, paralysis, stunned, none of that. We can't be frozen. You're immune to all status effects, and you get damage reduction while you're in it as well. So this ability is really good if you have somebody who's already used their role and you knock them up. You can instantly rip your ult on top of them, and it's going to do the full damage. And it also knocks people up while they're in it. It does a lot of damage, like I said. But the most important thing is like this can be a get out of jail free card if you're getting jumped by 3 people and you're on the ground and you don't have roll up, and the second you stand up, if you're just hitting your ult button, you're probably gonna live the situation and even potentially kind of bait people into eating your ult while your teammates just start wailing on them. This is a really, really good escape card almost for bad situations. So don't be afraid to rip this if you think you're about to get comboed, you don't have roll, or like, you know, you just have to live. If you're getting ulted on, you can actually counter ult on top of them. And because they ulted first, when their animation's done, they're going to get knocked up. So just something to keep in mind with the ultimate. The next up, we're going to be going over our basic combos and how you should be kind of opening your fights. This is probably the most basic, and this is if, you know, the stars align and everything works out perfectly, which isn't always the case, but you're going to pop energy combustion as soon as the game starts. You're going to walk out. If you see them kind of on top of each other, thunder kick in, wind's whisper because it's going to push them into a moon flash kick. Then you can dash if you kick them a little too far out of auto range or ability range. If you get a big wind's whisper on this, you should have tornado at this point, so you're going to tornado next. And if you don't have tornado, then you either reset, and if they don't roll, then you follow up with another knockup from Sky Shattering Blow or Sleeping Ascent Celebration. But if you do get tornado off of your beginning opener, thunder kick, wind's whisper, moon flash, make sure you rip tornado before they can get their roll off. If they roll, save tornado, back up, and then re-engage in tornado off of that. And then this is just a basic juggle combo, so you're going to make sure you have energy combustion up, crescent moon kick into thunder kick, slam on the ground, they won't have roll, into a sky shattering blow, knock them back up into the air, tornado. If you don't have tornado, you can Sleeping Ascent Celebration away to re-knock them one more time. That way when they stand up, they don't instantly combo you back. But that's kind of what your juggling combo is going to look like. A good peeling combo, and just something to keep in mind, you can use your spacebar dash to set your combos up, because like, let's say, you know, Crescent Moon, for example, has a dash built into it with the build that I run. So I can spacebar Crescent Moon kick for the knockup into juggle knockup combo of your liking, or, you know, what you have up. It's a tornado, it's another sky shattering blow, it's a couple more auto attacks, and this whole time you have energy combustion up, so they're taking, you know, static rolling damage on top of that as well. That's kind of what you want to keep in mind. If you see your teammates getting chased, you can turn really quick, spacebar Crescent Moon, and then peel for them that way. Don't be afraid to peel for your teammates. It's really important in this game, especially if they don't have a roll and you're not getting focused. You can put up some big damage in combos with tornado and just playing like a little sneaky. Next up, we're going to go over our buffs that we have in our kit. I know we talked about abilities a little bit at the start of the video, but I just really want to make sure we reiterate how important Wind's Whisper is for Wardancer. You're giving your teammates 20% damage reduction for 6 seconds, and you couple that with your energy combustion that you're taking 10% less damage, you're effectively taking 30% less damage for 6 seconds while that's up. And on top of that, you're going to get 8% attack speed on skill use from Wind's Whisper if you run the build that I built. So you are buffing yourself a ton every time you hit this button, and it's very important to keep an eye on your teammates. If you see them getting comboed or ulted or anything like that, you don't have to use Wind's Whisper to do damage and to push people. You can use it as a defensive cooldown for everybody. So just something to keep in mind if you see them getting Artillerist nuked, if you see him getting Sork ulted, if you see him getting Blade ulted, I mean, anything that's going to do a ton of damage, don't be afraid to pop that 20% damage reduction for your teammates, because that kill that you're negating could possibly be what is deciding who wins and loses in that game, especially in the latter portion of the game when you're taking the burst damage. Next up, we're going to go over our jumps one more time. I just want to make sure you guys understand the differences. Thunder Kick and Phoenix Advent, they're both very good initiators and escapes, but they have their pros and cons to them. So Thunder Kick is going to be a better initiator in a lot of situations. The animation time of Phoenix Dive, you're in the air for a few seconds, and in that time you can get CC'd. There's a good chance that you get stopped from engaging with that if they're paying attention to you. So I think Thunder Kick is definitely the better option to hard engage if you have to, and if they don't see you, Phoenix Advent is great. But if you Thunder Kick in, follow that with the Wind's Whisper, it's a really good way to start the juggling combo, and you're giving yourself damage reduction while you're kind of getting in the thick of things. The animation is pretty fast on Thunder Kick, so you have paralysis immunity while using it. It's just a really good way to initiate the fight. You can actually run the knock-up trait in the Phoenix Advent tree, and coupling that with Wind God is exceptional because they don't get a chance to roll like they do with the freeze. Sometimes the freeze can kind of hurt your chances of getting a clean tornado off, whereas the knockup, if they're not knockup immune, will instantly knock them up and you can rip tornado. If you can do it quick enough, they don't even get a chance to try and react. And it's a really free way to pick up and kind of like kidnap somebody across the arena. Not to say freeze is bad, it's a good alternative option, especially if you're playing more coordinated 3v3. Let's say you have an artillerist or a Sork or even a Berserker on your team. A big freeze can set them up just for huge damage openings, but that takes a little bit more coordination that you're not going to see, I don't think, when ranked comes out or in the current PvP scape of things. So I think a lot of it right now is doing a lot of stuff on your own, where the knock-up on Phoenix Advent is just, it sets you up for big tornadoes all the time. So just to TLDR everything so far, your goal as a Wardancer is to create openings and opportunities with your kit for your teammates to follow up with big damage. You want to force as many rolls as you can on the other team. It's just as crucial as doing like big damage like Sorks and Artillerists do. You are like the glue for the team because your kit has so many knockups and is so in and out that you can really terrorize like the back line. Learn how to become more fluent to spread these abilities out multiple times between multiple targets in order to create big damage opportunities for your team. For a long time, I was just hard focusing one target, and recently I realized that that's not really how we're supposed to be playing the class. It is really good for singling out one person, but your kit, it's so widespread in terms of like CC that you can be focusing one target, and if you notice you have your Phoenix Advent up, you can instantly jump on a Sork who might be casting a spell and his animation locked. There's a lot of ways for you to force rolls on the other team to give your teammates a better upper hand in the fights to land their full combos. Next up, I want to go over just some quick advanced tips. I have 7 here laid out, and some of you might already know it, some of you might not. These are just, things that I think will really help take your game to the next level as a Wardancer. First tip is going to be, think like, Bruce Lee once said, be as water, my friend. You need to be as fluent in any situation that you can be, because your kit is wide open in terms of knocking people and things like that. Your goal is to force as many rolls as you can so that your teammates can follow up. In and out hit and run tactics are really crucial for this class because you have a lack of super armor compared to some of the other big DPS classes. So it's important to be keeping an eye on what everybody's doing if you're like, in the fray, or if you're thinking about Phoenix diving in or anything like that. It's really important just to be as fluent as you can and have an idea of how you want your combos to play out, what CDs you have up, things like that. Tip 2 is going to be make sure you're keeping track of your role, as this will be pretty make or break for you due to lack of defensive super armor. So outside of our ult, we really don't have like full super armor. We can't run through stuns and knockups and freezes and things like that. So we need to always make sure if we're planning on doing an engage, we need to have our roll up. So if you pop your roll, don't be afraid to kind of take a few seconds to let it come off cooldown or get closer to coming off cooldown. That way when you engage again, you'll have roll up again. Tip number 3 is going to be learn the enemy classes. Now, obviously you're not going to be making every single class in the game and leveling it to 50, or you might power pass some and knowledge transfer, but I would highly suggest playing a lot of the 1v1 mode to better understand matchups, because it's less chaotic and you have time to really see what other people's classes abilities do, so that when you do go to 3v3, you know what to look out for, like Artillerist shield and their ult and how their turrets work and things like that, or Sork abilities and their cooldowns. Even if you don't win all of your 1v1 games. The spectator mode and the 1v1 mode is just impeccable, and you can literally read the enemy class's abilities while you're sitting and spectating and watching everything play out. So I think it's a really good way to just familiarize yourself with the, you know, the PvP landscape and how certain matchups for you are going to play out. Tip number 4 is your tornado ability is interruptible. It's important to learn when to time this. You know, does the enemy have roll? Are they using an ability with super armor? Is there an AoE heading towards me under my feet? Is a Sork pop an AoE under their feet? These are all things that you need to keep in mind before you hit that tornado button. You have the ability to generate a lot of the esoteric orbs, but the most important thing I think is to not waste that tornado, because it's such a game-changing ability that you don't want to just rip it and get knocked up. It's going to happen a lot. Like I said, you don't have a lot of super armor, but there's ways to mitigate the opportunity for the enemy to counter combo you or freeze you or anything like that. Tip number 5 is going to be, if an enemy is chasing you and you have a tornado, don't be afraid to bait and rip the tornado in order to catch them off guard. And when I say bait and rip, I mean, let's say they're following directly behind you. You can dash back towards them and rip the tornado before they have time to press a button. And then you just kind of carry them around, and they're going to be on the ground knocked down, and then you can get away even more, find your teammates can follow up, things like that. Don't be afraid to turn the fight on them, because you have nothing to lose. Tip number 6, always make sure you have energy combustion on for the rolling 10% damage reduction. This does stack with Wind's Whisper like we talked about earlier, so if you know you're about to, you know, engage or get engaged, don't be afraid to pop that on top of your energy combustion, just so that you have the full damage reduction. Tip number 7 is tornado can be used off one knockup and should be. Don't give the enemy a chance to roll. And what I mean by this is, if you're running the knockup tree on the Phoenix Advent, you want to make sure that you instantly press the tornado button. Don't think about it too much, because you have a very small window of time before you get CC'd or before you give the enemy a chance to roll. And that pretty much is going to wrap up the guide. I know it was kind of quick. That was my goal. If you guys have questions or anything like that, feel free to stop on my stream. I stream at twitch.tv/RhythmActual. Check out some of my other YouTube videos if you want to see some of these tips and things, you know, played out in real time. We just kind of rip full VODs sometimes and upload them for like good games and good examples, because I like the idea that people can, you know, watch my content and learn the class a bit better. And then lastly, if this guide you feel was helpful, if it was useful, if you learned something, if you didn't, let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys don't know, I do have a Discord. I'm pretty available in there if you have questions about Wardancer or some of the other classes. I've been playing some Scrapper, Soul Fist, a little bit of everything lately, so I'm always in there. Feel free to pop in and ask a question. I appreciate you guys checking out the videos and all the love on the channel that we've been seeing since Lost Ark came out. I've been having a ton of fun, and I'm really looking forward to when Ranked comes out. So make sure you guys hit that sub button so you can keep up to date with all the new videos and everything else that we have cooking up. And with that, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.